All right, good morning, my lovely students. I hope that you guys had a nice weekend with your families. Um, Today we are going to start a new grammar lesson. I believe it's a long one, but it is easy and you guys have taken it before, which is the passive voice. And it is regarding unit number 8, Media Matters, in our books. So for the meanwhile, just bear with me until I share with you the PowerPoint, and then we will start our lesson for today. All right, I believe that everyone got the screen right now. So as I told you before, our grammar lesson will be regarding the passive voice. Um, Please, I want you to pay extra attention to me, to what I am going to explain right now, in order to understand our lesson for today from the first time, okay? And if you guys have any question regarding anything in the explanation, I will give you time in order to ask me at the end of the class. So we said today we are going to talk about the passive voice. But before talking about the passive voice, let us get familiar with the word voice. What do I mean by the voice? Who can read the definition for me in here, and then we'll go back in order to explain it. Let me see hands. Yeah. Juan, would you like to start, dear? The voice?
The voice tells us whatever the subject is the doer of the action or receiving the action. The voice of a verb describes the relationship between the action that the verb expresses and the participants identified by it, subject or object. It tells us whether the subject is performing the action, active, or receiving the action, passive. When the subject is the doer of the action, the verb is the action voice. When the subject is the
Recipient?
recipient of the action, the verb is in the passive voice. For example, in the sentence, the cat ate the mouse, active.
Eight. Eight.
Oh, sorry. The cat ate the mouse, active. The mouse was eaten by the cat, passive.
Thank you, dear. All right, let's go back to the definition of the word the voice. All right, in order to understand it, and then we will proceed with our main lesson, which is the passive voice. Here, we say the voice, it tells us whether the subject is the doer of the action or receiving the action. What do I mean by that? We know that in the English sentence, or the English sentence, okay, consists of the subject, the verb, and the object. The subject here is the doer of the action. Who does the action? The action here is the verb in our sentence, and the receiving or the receiving of the action, which is our object. So the subject is the doer, the verb is the action itself, and the object is the thing or the person who is receiving the action. تمام. هلا let's continue our definition in here. The voice of a verb, the voice of the verb describes the relationship. So here we have a relationship. What is this relationship? Or between what and what? It is between the action that the verb expresses, as we said, and the participants. So it is the action, it is about the action and the participants identified by it, which is the subject and the object. So here we said that we have the subject of the sentence and the action, which is the verb, and the object. And the relationship, the voice describes this relationship between the subject, the action, and the object. It tells us whether the subject is performing the action, which is the active voice. So here we have one type of the voice, which is the active, or receiving the action, which is the passive voice. So here we have the other type of the voice, which is the passive. And in Arabic, which is the active voice اللي هو المبني للمعلوم، والpassive voice اللي هو المبني للمجهول. Okay, we will explain that in greater details in our next slides. When the subject is the doer of the action, pay attention to this. When the subject, okay, الفاعل is the doer of the action, the verb is in the active voice, بيكون مبني للمعلوم. When the subject is the receiver, اللي هو المتلقي, the recipient of the action, the verb is in the passive voice. So this is the difference between the active voice and the passive voice. Let's have our example in here in order to clarify what we just explained. For example, in that sentence, here we have the cat ate the mouse. If I want to say that the cat is our subject, ate is our verb or action, and the mouse is our object or the receiver, okay, of the sentence in here of the action. So here we have subject, verb, object. Here we have it in the active, المبني للمعلوم. If I want to change this active sentence into a passive one, what do? I put the object at the beginning of my sentence. So the mouse will be the doer of the action. It becomes the subject, and our action stays in the middle, all right, which is our verb. And then the subject of the active sentence will become the object of it, which is the cat. So here it will become the mouse was eaten by the cat, and here we will form a passive sentence. Let's go to the next slide. And after we are familiarized with the word voice, now we come to the main topic of our lesson for today, which is the passive voice. And let us talk about the definition of it. Describe the active voice. Who can read the definition, and then we will explain it. Let me see here. Yusuf, يلا يا Yusuf.
Okay. The passive voice definition. In passive voice, the subject is the receiver of the action. The passive voice is used when we want to focus on the action, the verb, and the object of the sentence, rather than the subject. Rather than the subject. This means that the subject is either less important than the action itself, or that we don't know who or what the subject is.
Thank you, dear. All right, let's go back. The passive voice, the definition of it. In passive voice, للمبني, okay, للمجهول. The subject is the receiver of the action, as we said. So the subject will become the receiver, المتلقي of the action. The passive voice is used when do we use it? When we want to focus, and this is the main word, the key word, on the action, على الverb, on the verb itself, and the object of a sentence, the receiver of the sentence, rather than the subject. So here, the subject of our sentence in the active voice is not as important as the action itself and the receiver, the object of the sentence. And this can be expressed in the next sentence in here. This means that the subject is either less important than the action itself, or that we don't know who or what the subject is. We don't know who did the action or what the subject is. One more time. Here, the passive voice is used when we want to focus on, when we want to concentrate on. لما بدنا نركز على الأكشن itself, الحدث, and the object of the sentence, and the receiver of this action, rather than the subject. So here, our subject, it means that our subject is either less important, okay, مش بالأهمية اللي هي بأهمية الحدث عنا أو بأهمية المتلقي لهذا الحدث, or that we don't know who or what the subject is. أو إنه لما إحنا إيش ما بنكون عارفين مين اللي قام بالعمل أو اللي سوى هذا الأكشن، اللي سوى هذا العمل. So here, what is the passive voice? What is the passive voice? Yeah, let me see hands in here. يا فرح.
Yes, teacher. Passive voice is formed by making the object of the sentence into the subject of the sentence. Example, the tiger bites John. John is bitten by the tiger.
Thank you, Farah. So, what is passive voice? ما هو المبني للمجهول? Passive voice is formed by making the object. Here, as we said, we have subject, verb, object. So in the passive voice, we make the object of the sentence into a subject of the sentence. So this is the object, which is in blue. It becomes the subject of our new sentence, which is in the passive voice. Okay, so here the tiger, as we said before, is the subject in the active sentence. Bites is our verb or our action, and John is the object or the receiver. So if I want to change this active sentence into a passive sentence, I will insert John, which is the object, in order to become the subject for our new sentence, for our passive sentence, okay? And then we will put our verb in here, and then we the subject of our active sentence will become the object of our passive sentence, will become the object of our passive sentence. We will talk about the formation of it, but after we're done with our uses. What are the uses of the passive voice? Here we have 4 uses. Let me have Zaina read the uses, please, dear.
Teacher Mice.
When it's
Okay, wait يا Zaina. Yes, dear.
Teacher, I am sorry أنا طلعت شوي لأنه فصل النت.
Okay, all right. It's okay. It's okay, يا Vicky. All right. Go ahead, يا Zaina.
When it's obvious who does the action in a sentence. When we don't want to say who does the action in a sentence. When we don't know who does the action in a sentence. When it's not important who does the action in a sentence.
Yeah, Nalek. Thank you, Zaina. All right. So when do we use the passive voice? Why do I use the passive voice? Here we have 4 uses. Use number 1. When it is obvious who does the action in a sentence. What do I mean by the word obvious in here? What does the word obvious mean, guys?
واضح.
Clear.
Clear. Thank you. Yes. So when it is clear who did the action. For example, all right, for instance, if I am at a restaurant, okay, who will serve me? The waiter, right? Hello?
Yes, teacher.
Yes. So if I am at a restaurant and I am ordering food, I know and everybody knows and it is obvious in here that the waiter will serve me. So here I don't need to insert the doer of the action. And that's when I use the passive voice. So instead of saying the waiter served me in the restaurant, I can say I was served in the restaurant, and without saying the waiter, by the waiter. So here it is obvious, the doer of the action is obvious. Let's go to use number 2. When we don't want to say who does the action in a sentence, when we don't want to say it, okay? It is okay not to say who is the doer, who does the action. That's when I use the passive voice. Use number 3. When we want or when we don't know who does the action in a sentence, okay? An action has been done, but by whom, I don't know. So here I also use the passive voice. And use number 4, when it is not important who does the action in the sentence. When it is not important, as we said before, our action and the receiver, the object, is more important than the subject in our sentence, than the doer of the action in our sentence. So here, one more time, excuse me, the uses of the passive voice: when it is obvious who did the action, when we do not know who did the action, when we do not want to say who does the action, and the last one, when the doer of the action is not important for us, when the doer of the action is not important for us. Let's go now to the formation of the passive voice. How can I form my sentence in the passive voice? Look here, guys. Let me see. Did you read? Okay, Vicky, can you read, please? The passive voice. Yes.
The passive voice in English is composed of 2 elements. The form of the verb to be plus past participle. Example: I am employed by a Latin school. Sally has been notified by the head offices.
By the head office.
Milk is not drunk by the baby.
Milk is not drunk by the baby. Thank you, dear. All right, let's go back. How can I form my passive sentence? How can I form the passive voice? Here, the passive voice in English is composed of مكون من. It consists 2 elements, 2 main important elements. What are they? The form of the verb to be. Okay, we have the verb to be plus the past participle of the verb plus verb 3. The verb to be, we will put it according to our tenses. What do I mean by that? Let's go to the examples in order to explain my rule in here. Example number 1. I am employed by a Latin school. All right, let's look here. I is the subject of the sentence. Am is the verb to be, the form of verb to be. Okay, employed is the past participle of the verb employ by a Latin school. Number 2, Sally is my subject, has been here, okay, is the form of the verb to be, Notified is my action, and it is the verb in the past participle by the head office. And number 3, milk is my subject, and is the form of verb to be, and it's in the present. Not, we will talk about it right now if I want to negate it. And the drunk is the past participle of the verb drink, which is verb 3 of the verb drink by the baby. All right, let's have the rule if it was in the affirmative form and if it was in the negative form. In the affirmative, which is حالة الإثبات, I have my subject. Look here, I got my subject, which is I, or Sally, or Mom. And the auxiliary verb to be, according to my tense, which is here am, has, is, and the main verb, and it has to be in the past participle, which is employed, notified, drunk, by, if I want to say who did the action, the doer of the action, by is the a preposition, okay, يعني بواسطة, and the agent or the doer of the action here, it came as a Latin school or the head office or the baby, a Latin school or the head office or the baby. This is in the affirmative. But if I want to negate it, if I want to put it in the negative, بدي أنفيها, what do? I just add not after my auxiliary verb. I just add not. So my formation for the negative sentence in the passive voice will be my subject here as example number 3. Look at example number 3 in here. My subject, which is milk. The auxiliary verb be, which is not, as here, milk is not. The main verb in the past participle, which is the drunk, and then by, and then the baby, which is the agent or the doer of the action. So my sentence will become, milk is not drunk by the baby. Milk is not drunk by the baby. Do you guys have any question regarding the formation? حد عنده أي سؤال على الفورم؟ All right, let's now have an example in order to clarify it more. Let's have an example. Who can read this example and explain it for me? Let me see here. Who can read it and explain it? يلا يا زينة.
The dog chased the cat. The cat was chased by the dog. Teacher, should I explain it?
Please.
Okay. Here in the active sentence, the dog chased the cat, we have the subject and then the verb that is chased and the object, the cat. Here, when we want to put it in the passive voice, we should insert the object as a subject, so the cat becomes the subject. Then we should put the verb to be, he was, regarding to the object because it's singular, was, and the verb in the past participle was chased. Then if we want to put the subject or not, I will put it by the dog.
يا عيني عليكي. Thank you, dear. Yes, that was 100% right. All right. So now we come to a slide that will tell us the difference between the active voice and the passive voice. Who would like to read the definition for both, okay, and explain it for me? Here, the definition and explain it for me. Let me see hands in here. Aha, Rimi, yalla ya Rimi.
Active voice tells us what a person or a thing does. The subject performs the action, verb, and the subject. Subject plus verb plus object. Example, Anna painted the house. The teacher always answers the students' questions. Ali posted the video online. Should I read the other one?
The passive, please.
Okay. The passive voice tells us what is done to something, to someone or something. The subject is being acted upon. Object plus verb plus subject. Example, the house was painted by Anna. The students' questions are answered by the teacher. The video was posted online by Ali.
Thank you. Okay, dear. Now, can you, Remy, explain the first example in here in the active and how we transform it to the passive voice, okay, such as Zaina did? Here, Anna painted the house, okay? If I want to make it in the passive voice, the house was painted by Anna. What did you do regarding the rule that we have in here?
We switched between the subject and the object.
And our sentence became?
Passive.
All right, can you read it for me?
The house was painted by Anna.
Thank you, dear. Who can explain the second example for me? The teacher always answers the students' questions. Let me see hands. Yalla. Juan, go ahead.
The teacher always answers the students' questions. So here the teacher is the subject, and when we want to turn the sentence to the passive voice, we put it as an object. So and the student's questions is the object. So we switch between the subject and the object. It turns to the subject. The student's questions are answered by the teacher. The verb answers turns to the past participle, which is answered, and the verb to be is in the present form because always is in the present.
يا عيني عليكي يا عيني عليكي. Thank you dear. Yes, and I will go to the third example and it will be for Yusuf. يلا يا Yusuf, explain the third example for me.
Okay, Ali posted the video online, and in the passive sentence, the video was posted online by Ali. In the active sentence, Ali is the doer, the action, which is post the video online, and the object is the video online. And in the passive sentence, we put the object
at the beginning.
And the subject, which is Ali, in the end of the sentence.
At the end of the sentence. So our passive sentence will become, can you read it, please?
The video was posted by Ali, and in the passive sentence, the verb to be is was because the subject is singular.
Thank you, dear. Yes, that's 100% correct. So now we have two more examples in here, and I would like a student to read the active, okay, and then the passive and explain it for me, and another student to read the other sentence in here. So we will start with Farah. Can you please read the first one, and Layth, you will explain for me the second one. Yeah.
Sally drove her car off the road. The car was driven off the road by Sally. In the active voice, Sally is our subject, and drove is the verb or the action, and her car is the object. And when we want to change from active voice to passive voice, the subject will become the object, and the object will become the subject. So the sentence will become, the car was driven off the road by Sally, and we put the verb with the auxiliary verb and the verb 3, past participant.
Yeah, so, yes.
It will become the car was driven off the road by Sally.
Yeah, عليكي. Thank you, Farruh. Let's go to Layth.
Yes, teacher. The dog bit Timmy on the arm. Timmy was bitten on the arm by the dog. The dog in active voice is the subject. In passive voice, the dog is subject. Bit in active voice, verb one, base verb. In passive voice, بتصير past participle.
يعني عليك. So our new sentence will be Timmy lay.
Yes, teacher.
Yes, Timmy.
Timmy was bitten on the arm by the dog.
By the dog. Thank you, dears. Unfortunately, our time is almost done because they have shortened the period time. Okay. So with that, we will be done with our lecture for today. I hope that you guys understood everything. Please revise it, okay? Watch the video again. And if you guys have any question regarding what we explained, please ask me. For next class, we will be discussing the tenses, the gerund, the infinitives, okay, regarding and the modal verbs regarding the passive voice. So please prepare, have a look at this grammar in your student's book on page 171. Okay, it explains that. So have a look in order to follow up with me for the next class. For today's class, I really enjoyed it with you guys, and I hope that you guys understood everything. And I wish you a nice weekend, and please stay safe. Do you guys have any question?
No, teacher.
No, teacher. Thank you.
No, teacher.
All right. Thank you, dears. Thank you. I'll see you.